Morning, guys. Today I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about my recent progress. Um, as I left off last progress video, I just finished up these roses. See, they're nicely healed now. They're more subtle than they were when they were fresh. But overall, they healed really, really nice. And they kind of look too good to be true in a way. So again, quite a bit like this rose on my hand. The neck roses stayed pretty well the same as they were put in. Um, I had said that where we were going next, and I've been kind of alluding to for quite a while, it's going to be a lot bigger and a lot more ambitious than my first few pursuits into black on black and white on black. And finally, the day came about a week after I expected it to, anyway, because something came up last week and I couldn't get tattooed. But I ended up getting tattooed just yesterday, and I couldn't be happier with the session we had. It was quite long, um, especially for lining. It was a really long day. Usually with lining sessions, you're in and out pretty quick, but we lined quite a bit of my torso. So I'll just show it off. So we have one tentacle here, another one up here, and then we have two and a third here. Those are all going to get filled in, and we're going to be adding more tentacles in. We're going to be pulling one through here and kind of attaching it all to the eye. And there'll be a whole bunch of tentacles making up the underneath, stuff like that. We've got plans to put all kinds of cool stuff on my chest, like the base of the tentacles and sort of spider eye anatomy. Just different things to kind of go along with the theme that we've got going now. Overall, the idea is kind of inspired by like H.P. Lovecraft, or like more of a Cthulhu based thing than my first suit was, where it was more like, I don't know, more like octopus tentacles or sea monster type thing. This is more horror style, and I think it goes better with the eye. These new pieces that I got should probably be the most graphic of all the black on black I've done, simply because um, while my stomach and ribs were only blacked out twice, and they were quite a bit lighter than my neck, for example, so they should show up a lot better than my roses on my neck and on my hand. The nature of the hand and why I'm so impressed with this hand tattoo, and I'm always showing it off, is um, hand tattoos quite often don't stay very well. A lot of tattoo artists don't even like doing them at all. So the fact that we did a black on black rose and it stayed so well is still, it's still just so amazing to me. And it really did open my eyes. This whole project has been like learning as I've gone, and I think that that's not going to stop anytime soon. I think when I got finished yesterday, um, even just having these lined, it felt really cool. Because I've always said that I want to do more, but like again, you don't really realize what's possible until you see it yourself. Like it's really easy to speculate. It's really easy to have ideas and like kind of thoughts on the matter, but until you see those lines there, it's all just theoretical. You could do anything potentially, but what will you do? Well, now I can say with a great deal of certainty that I'm not stopping anytime soon, and I'll probably end up by the end of the year with most of a torso suit, lined and mostly shaded. The lining goes quite a bit faster than the fill-in does for the shading. Even though there's a black background, there's going to be shading. We're going to be using different line weights and lengths and dot shading and some white ink to bring out the tentacles and everything else we end up doing. But the next session is going to be next week. We're doing another session, and we're going to be working on the chest area, like the chest panels. We're going to be filling those spaces and filling up the remainder of my lower stomach, lining all that out, because we actually had one more tentacle lined out and stenciled on but we didn't love the placement of it. So it was one of those. We got to the end and went, that one could be a little better. We'll do that one next time. Especially like the first session of things like this, you're really just kind of laying the groundwork. And again, it turns into a situation where I almost don't want to put this up on Instagram because people just don't see it. Like I posted the wraparound video already to my TikTok because I don't really care much about my TikTok. It doesn't need to make sense. I don't care what the reaction is necessarily, but people don't get it. They think that that's the finished product, or that the way you put it up, put it in the first day is going to be how it stays. And yeah, that's just not the way it is. These things have to be lined, then shaded, then, maybe you add some highlights. It's a lot like when I did my first suit. It's not at all like doing the blackout suit this time. Um, it's not nearly as painful as doing the blackout suit either. So there's a lot of people out there that don't think blackout tattoos take long, or that they're not that bad compared to regular tattoos. Strangely, I've seen that sort of thought online, but that's just not the case. No form of tattooing that I've had, and I've had almost every type of tattoo done on me, has hurt as much as any of the black work I was doing. The blackout stomach sessions were so painful and visceral that there were days when I was tired um, for days after. There was one session I went home and threw up after. I went into shock probably. The only times I've ever had infections were blackout sessions. So the idea that blackout tattoos aren't hard or painful or anything like that is absolutely absurd. And what I'm doing now is much easier. Lining and shading a regular tattoo. You really want to get some black work done, and then you'll appreciate just how easy lining and shading is. How easy it is to get a regular tattoo compared. It's puts it all in perspective for me, and it's kind of like doing it all again, but with greater insight as to what tattooing can actually feel like in its extremes. We will be doing more into the armpits and stuff like that. I plan on doing a sixth and seventh session on my armpits. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to put there yet, but it's all going to carry this theme from here out. The roses and the moon and stuff like that were all just like little things that I could do, kind of 1 or 2 sessions, and see what they're going to look like before testing the waters of bigger projects. And now that we started this Cthulhu sort of mob madness type tentacle stuff, that's more or less all I'm going to be doing from here out with this bodysuit. That does include my legs too, but I don't know how long it'll be before I get there. Like, I plan on building all of this imagery all the way down, but this might be a years long project that I just pick away at now, and just having the full body to do this with, I can do a whole body theme now where it's all consistent from top to bottom, and there's no weird tattoos that don't make any sense, which happened majorly in my first bodysuit. There was a lot of tattoos there that just weren't really making sense to me. Like, they didn't flow well as part of the whole project, as I've spoken about before. So this time I really want to make sure that everything works together. You could ask me how a rose works with a tentacle, or Cthulhu-based horror, or H.P. Lovecraft-style horror, but I think the roses go with the roses on my head and the leaves on my head and stuff. So I think that checks that box, and I think I'm done with roses now. I had originally thought of a few sort of unaffiliated pieces for my arms, like my outer biceps. I was thinking about doing 2 bat faces in white ink that were basically like the 2 bats I had on my legs, my calves and shins when I was younger. Because I really like those bats, but they just didn't belong in the blackout suit anymore. But now I'm starting to think maybe not. And this is part of why I didn't do my arms first, because I wanted to leave those free. I wanted to do the torso work and then kind of spread out from there and see if I can make like an extension from my torso out to my arms. So again, staying with that consistent body theme of like Cthulhu based horror, right? And it all works with the eye, which I always said that if I wanted to keep the eye, I really have to do something to make it more relevant and make it make sense within the context of this bodysuit. And that's exactly what we're doing. And of course, the eye is going to get more work done on it too in the near future. Might even be 3 weeks from now. We might even be putting more red into the eye to make it more prominent. Because again, it's surrounded by so much black that it looks a little washed out. An interesting effect that happens when you do black on black tattoos is, and it's been kind of driving me nuts. I've talked a little about this, but getting a darker black over something that's been blacked out several times can really challenge you, make you think like, were my blacks that black? Like it gives you that weird question. But just the way that the ink is saturated in the skin with a liner and the depth of the needle, it changes how the black shows on your exterior layer. So when you mag in a blackout, it disperses differently. So you're never going to get as dark with a mag as you are with a liner. It's made me wonder if you could potentially line your whole arm and make it darker that way, or if it would still spread. Now, I think you'd run the risk of chewing up your arm, and I don't think it's a great idea. It would take you 10 years. Well, maybe not 10 years, but a really long time. It would be very inefficient. I wonder if at the end of it you would end up with a much blacker black, or if it would still be sort of the same gray black, or not as punchy. Say, even you see in my chest piece, the blacks that are surrounded by white look blacker than the blackout because of the lack of contrast, right? The liner achieves an effect. So people ask me all the time how black on black works. The liner achieves an effect of adding a darker, like thinner line of black that doesn't disperse throughout the skin, same way a mag would. And it creates contrast. So in a way, you're using the old black almost as a gray tone, or like a white ink type thing, where with white ink, you're creating contrast by making the lines lighter. With black on black, you're creating contrast by making the inside of the lining lighter in contrast to the new black. And the way it ages over time, because people always think it's going to meld into the old black and not show up, that's not the case, because as the ink breaks down, the lines are more likely to hold up than the shading. So what you're doing when you're adding those lines in after is you're almost creating like the bones of a tattoo, and the background of it can fade, but those bones are going to stay more or better. Now, I don't know too much about the application end of things, but anything I've ever lined is harder to cover than anything I've ever shaded. It's just the way that the shader versus the liner saturates is different. That's the main component in getting black on black to work. The only thing that's strange to me about all of this is the question of whether I could black it all out again, or if you magged over it and those lines would stay. Like that's a question I don't really want to try and answer, but I wonder. It does pique my curiosity, and a lot of this has. It's really now I just feel like I'm almost on a new frontier of exploration and tattooing for myself anyway. I know people have done this around the world, but no one in my area, or no one I've ever met, has been in this sort of capacity before. And no one I've even been able to talk to has, because a lot of people who have done this stuff are very reclusive and don't speak out about it. So there isn't a lot of information out there, and I'm trying to change that. I'm doing the best I can to spread some more awareness of sort of other possibilities, and but at the same time learning as I go. So it can only be anecdotal, obviously, and being that I don't plan on quitting YouTube or Instagram anytime soon, people are going to see how these things age alongside me. They're going to see if this stays as visible as it is now. And so far, it hasn't lost anything in the 3 months I've had it. So I'll just give one more look at these. So still a little bit swollen. When they heal, I imagine they're going to be super crisp still. Because as I said, my stomach and ribs are about the lightest blackouts on me. So I'm expecting great things, and I'll be doing another video about the next session next week. So make sure to be watching out for that. Let me know what you think of this. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon.